It's cold today. You know what else is cold? Being eliminated in a game. I'm Pep, and this is a Pep Talk. Today, we're going to talk about games where you can be eliminated and what to do afterwards. Obviously, the easiest thing to do is just get up and leave. Go play another game, maybe just go home if you know the game's going to take a while. Seems reasonable. You might even be angry because you got kicked out of the game so early, everyone else is going to be busy playing their games. What do, right? Well, on the opposite side of things, the other obvious answer is to do nothing, to just sit there and wait. I don't know, twiddle your thumbs, play on your phone, feign disinterest in the situation while roiling in the seething anger of being eliminated. Both these seem very reasonable. And I understand why you get upset when you're eliminated in a game. It's happened to me before, especially if it happens early on in the game and it feels unjustified. But at the end of the day, you were involved in that game, which means that the things you did have some sort of a bearing on how the game is going to end. Don't you want to see how that ends? And if that's not enough incentive for you, maybe you turn it into a mystery. I think at this point we need to break down into a couple of the different kinds of games where this type of elimination can happen. Now, player elimination doesn't really happen quite as much anymore in games. I think publishers and game designers have gotten the impression that people don't like it, so they're straying away from it, which is fine, I understand. But one of the classic types of games, which usually still include player elimination, are war games of any sort. Generally in a war game, your goal is to either achieve some certain objective or more likely to defeat all of your opponents. And usually over the course of defeating those opponents, you might eliminate them. Or you might not even fully eliminate them, you might just bring them to the point where they're honestly not involved in the game anymore. And I've seen people treat that type of situation the same as if they were eliminated. They'll either sit there and do nothing for the rest of the game, or leave. And again, I understand why that would be the way you want to go. And for some people, maybe that's what you need to do. Maybe you're so upset about it, you're so angry, or you just don't want to be there anymore with those people who eliminated you. I understand. In that case, it might be best to leave or to go somewhere else for a little bit, maybe come back after you feel better. But if you want to take this journey with me, let's figure out why we want to stay. Now, in the case of war games especially, I think this is where my first point really stands. That being the fact that you've already influenced the game so much. Likely you weren't eliminated early on, it probably got to about the middle of the game at least before you were gone, which means that you had some sort of an impact on the game. The things that you've attacked, the alliances you've made. The fact that you're gone doesn't mean that you're forgotten. And if people at your table are fine with this and the game doesn't have any rules about people who are eliminating needing to stay silent, then don't. Sit there and be an instigator. Be like, oh, this person attacked me and eliminated me from the game. Why aren't you taking them out, you know? Spread a little discourse. If that's the kind of thing your game group enjoys, that's a way that someone who's been eliminated from the game can still be there and feel entertained and feel involved. Maybe it even turns into a secret post-death alliance with one of the other players at the table. You start whispering things into their ears, telling them secrets that you might have gained before getting out of the game. Again, make sure this isn't breaking any critical rules of the game before doing it, and that it's more just for the fun and the theme. And if you're good enough at it, odds are people aren't going to eliminate you first in games anymore. Either way, I think it's important to stick around the table and just watch and see, again, how the things that you did before being eliminated go on to affect the rest of the game. Did the person who overstretched themselves in order to take you out end up getting taken out themselves? That's great to watch. It's great to see someone go down for making the mistake of taking you down too early. Or they might completely rise to power and dominate the entire game, in which case you get that good feeling that they felt they needed to take you out first before moving on to everyone else. Maybe you were the biggest threat. Either way, I think in that type of game especially, you can get a lot of enjoyment out of watching the game unfold towards the end. There's other games such as Bloodborne where player elimination isn't technically part of the game, but via some specific boss ability, it may happen. Now, in games like this, it isn't really all that cooperative, nor is it something where you get to watch your legacy unfold based on what you've done to other players. A lot of it doesn't really have permanence. And in quite a few games where elimination just can happen, yeah, there might not be that much permanence in them. And that's where I think I want to dip into my second point, and that being that the purpose of being here is for entertainment. And of course, you want to play games and you want to have fun. But just because you're eliminated doesn't mean that it's not still fun to watch the game unfold. Sure, you might not actually get a turn, but you can still sit there and imagine what you would do in the situation and think about how if you hadn't been eliminated, oh, I could have made it to the end, and just in general, enjoying what's going on. The other people still exist as human players. You can interact with them and talk about their day, do whatever else you want that would normally happen in the game, and meanwhile, watch the game unfold. And this applies to a lot of games, even ones that more specifically feature player elimination. A good example might even be going to a card tournament for like Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh!, that sort of thing. There may be elimination, or a lot of people, if they're playing Swiss rounds, which is, I don't want to explain right now. The gist of it is that they all continue to play the entire time, but once you've lost so many games, you're essentially in what one might call the loser's bracket. You know you're not going to win any prizes, you know you're not going to be able to make it into the top 8, and so a lot of people just leave. Or at the very least, they eliminate themselves from the competition and don't play any more games. Which makes sense. You might not be in a good mood because you've been losing games, and you might just not want to play against opponents for what seems like no reason for you. Especially if you play the game professionally in some way, because you're there to make money. If you can't make money anymore, why stay? And if you're there alone, it makes sense. Probably just leave. But if you're there with friends, odds are you might want to stick around just to see how everyone else is doing. You know, cheer them on, give them advice between matches. If you see they're going up against someone good, that might actually be against rules in some way. Pretend I didn't say that. I'm sure it's fine though. Either way, if you have friends, stay there and support them. Or leave, whichever, it's fine. But the game that you probably assumed this entire video was going to be about, which is why I put it off until the end, is Werewolf. And there's other games like Werewolf. The major idea is that it's usually a social deduction style game where players are slowly eliminated over the course of days and nights. Not real life days and nights, just days and nights in game. And in almost all cases, these eliminated players essentially need to stop playing. They need to back out of the circle. They usually need to stop talking to everyone else, although that can be a little lax sometimes. As long as it's clear you're not talking about the game, people are usually okay with you chatting with the other people around the table. But either way, unlike the other games I've mentioned, the core concept of these type of games is to have player elimination. That is the point. And there's a lot of people who don't like that sort of thing. So much so that a lot of games have come out since that use the same mechanisms but eliminate the player elimination. One Night Ultimate Werewolf is a good example of this. You have all the same deduction, just without the drawn out bits about killing people and having people eliminated. In my opinion, both types of the game are quite enjoyable. One will often take a lot longer, of course, and that might not be a bad thing. Because as I suggested before, if you're doing it, you're likely doing it for entertainment. And Werewolf adds an extra little bit of layering that you can let yourself soak entertainment from. And I think there's two distinct paths you can follow here. The first path is to continue to play the game, but you're not. Of course, you're not allowed to talk and interact, but when everyone goes to sleep at night and when all the mystery is happening, keep your eyes closed. See if you can actually solve the mystery while the other players are playing. I've played before that way, and it's a lot of fun. You might not be playing, but you still get to sit there and try to read everybody and think, oh, that person's got to be the werewolf. Look at the way they're acting. Look at the way they responded to that person. Those two now seem to be really working together out of nowhere. I've never seen them work together like that before. odds are they're probably working together in some way. If they're not the werewolves, then maybe they have some sort of an inside knowledge that they know because of some other ability. The games can be so complicated sometimes, especially with larger groups. And by complicated, I don't mean mechanically complicated, I mean socially complicated. You have to read so many different things with people. And technically, if your team wins, you've still won. So just because you're eliminated, if you're sitting there still playing along in your head and not getting any extra information by staying awake during the nights, then yeah, I mean, it seems fun. It should be fun. And if you're a villager and then the village wins, you're like, yeah, we won. I died early. I was a sacrifice for all of you. Which brings up a funny point and possibly a true point. Sacrifices do happen. And if you're playing as a werewolf, it'll happen quite often where someone might start getting suspicion, so the other werewolves will throw them under the bus, so to say. And usually that werewolf accepts it. You kind of have to. You know, okay, I'm probably going to die anyway, or we're getting to a situation where certain people are being suspected. Maybe I need to fall on the sword in order to make sure that my team can still win in the end. And usually in that situation, everyone's very accepting of it. The werewolves are happy. Even the person who died is usually pretty happy when it came to the end. They feel like it's because of them. But for some reason, when you're on the other side, the good side, people don't really see it that way, which I find a little strange. And this is going to sound weird, but if you're playing werewolf, maybe even for the first time, or you're not as experienced as some of the other people at the table, and you're on the team of good, in theory, if you can put yourself in a situation where the werewolves want to target you, and they're going to kill you at night, then technically you're helping your team. If you feel that you're not as strong a player, or you don't have as good of opinions in that particular game, then yeah, by you dying instead of one of those other people dying, and especially if they're speaking up a lot, there's a good chance they might be some sort of an important role. So yeah, you dying early can actually be helpful to your team because you are saving important special roles, or you're just saving people who might have a stronger presence in the game in that moment. So if you die, you don't always have to feel bad. In fact, if the werewolves chose to kill you, they likely chose to kill you for a reason. It wasn't random. They thought maybe you were starting to have some good opinions. Maybe they noticed you looking their way and decided before you're going to speak up about anything, they need to get rid of you. So that's another reason why it can be fun to play the game afterwards. Maybe you can figure out why you got killed. And I said there were two options. So the first option, to summarize, was continuing to play the game, keeping your eyes closed during the night, etc. The other option is to just watch the game. Pretend it's a movie, pretend it's a murder mystery, but you get that cool, fun little thing that you get in like actual murder mysteries sometimes in movies where like you get to watch the killer killing people. I guess that's less like the murder mystery and more like watching like Friday the 13th or the one with Freddy in it. Nightmare on Elm Street. So yeah, you basically are watching a slasher movie go on. You're watching everyone go down, but it's fun for you because you know who the killer is. So you get to kind of like watch and guess who might get killed next and just be involved in it. You know, get yourself some popcorn and watch as everyone squirms and tries to target the wrong person. And it can just be a lot of fun. I've never honestly understood why people just hated being eliminated so much and would just get up and leave. I get it. If there's some other games you could be playing, you might want to get up and go, but often I'll want to play Werewolf multiple times. So if I get eliminated even early on the first game, I want to sit and watch. And then when you go to watch the next game, you still have all the social cues that you've learned from watching this game. People have tells, people have traits, people have ways that they act when they're good and when they're bad. And even if they're really good, people can slip up and make mistakes. And you observe all that, you breathe it in. So if you're playing a social deduction game, odds are that you're interested in that kind of aspect. You're interested in when people are bluffing and how to tell when people are lying. And you're not gonna only learn that by playing the game until you're eliminated and leaving. You're gonna learn that by watching after you're dead, because now there's no pressure on you. You are just sitting there and watching, and you don't have to think about your role. You don't have to think about whether or not people are going to attack you. You get to watch everything. And personally, I think that's amazing. Anyway, that's been my pep talk. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or you just want to talk about times when you were eliminated in the game or why you do or don't like player elimination, put them in the comments below and we'll talk about it. I am biased to the side of sticking around and actually enjoying player elimination, but I totally understand why people don't like it when you have the opportunity to play things that don't have player elimination, especially if you're not someone who's into social deduction. I would say thanks for watching early, and then I don't know what to say for the final part. Goodbye, farewell. I'll see you next time. You'll see me next time. That's actually much more accurate. I don't know, I can't see you. I guess I can see your little picture face that you have in the comments if you leave a comment. Alright, whatever. Goodbye. I appreciate you watching the video.